finally finished the book. Courage is Calling by Ryan Holiday. I am not exaggerating when I say that I think this is the most impactful, meaningful, certainly most relevant for the times book that I have ever read. And I read a fair amount. All the little flags here are things that I highlighted, but there were so many other things that just blew my mind. Here's the thing. This book was published in 2021, so during the pandemic. This book is even more relevant today and meaningful today than back then. If I could get every single politician to read this, I would die a happy woman. Seriously. But anyways, this is an amazing book, and I have to talk about it. I just want to sort of give you an overview. So if you're looking for something that to read that is nonfiction, that is inspiring and hopeful at the same time as being brutally honest and insightful, this is it. Ryan is an amazing writer. I listen to his podcast, The Daily Stoic. He also has a YouTube channel, and he talks about the Stoic virtues. This is book 1 of the Stoic Virtues series. And I have since purchased the other 3, and I've started to read the second one already. But every morning I read a couple of chapters of this throughout the month of January. And it has made me feel hopeful and frustrated, almost in equal measure. I often think that there is a real misconception about what courage is. That it is bravado, machismo. Is that the right way to say it? That sort of thing. And what I believe, and what this book definitely sort of talks about, is how courage is often so much quieter than that, and so much more personal than that. So I'm just going to go over some of the things that really resonated with me. In one of the early chapters, he talks about fear and how fear can keep so many good people from doing the right thing. And he says, a scare is a temporary rush of feeling that can be forgiven. Fear is a state of being, and to allow it to rule is a disgrace. One helps you, makes you alert, wakes you up, informs you of danger. The other drags you down, weakens you, and even paralyzes you. So he says, it's okay to be scared. Who wouldn't be? But it's not okay to let that stop you, basically, from doing the right thing, doing what you need to do. Who does good work when they're afraid? Who can see clearly when they're afraid? Who can help others? How can you love when you're afraid? How can you do anything when you're afraid? We are all afraid at times, sometimes chronically afraid. There's the difference between that initial rush of fear because you're presented with a situation, an enemy, something like that, and it's life or death, metaphorically or literally, to react, to do something. And then there's the world we live in today, where so many of us, some obviously much more than others, living in a chronic state of being afraid. And it's that chronic state of being afraid that begins to paralyze us and keep us from doing things. Being afraid is human. Being afraid is normal. But being afraid, we have to be really careful to not let being afraid be a way of life, to be our chronic state. We have to find a way to face the fears and do things anyways, because we're not always able to eliminate what's causing us to be afraid. What he says is, tell yourself, it's just money. It's just a bad article, because he's a writer. It's just a meeting with people yelling at one another. Is that something we need to be afraid of? So often what our enemies or the people around us want us to feel fear But if we really think about it, is it really something to be afraid of? At the root of most of our fears is our concern for what other people think of us. And what he says is, you can't let fear rule, because there's never been a person who did anything that matters without pissing people off. And I love that. I love that quote. That is so true. And one of the things I learned far too late in my life, I spent so much of my youth worried about what other people thought of me, what they thought of what I said, what I did, how I looked, the decisions I made, the life I lived. And that held me back so much, being afraid of what other people thought of me. And then I came to the realization, other people weren't thinking about me. The majority of the time, other people were not thinking about me. They weren't caring what I was saying, doing, or wearing. They were too busy worrying about what I thought about them. They were not judging me. They were worried about being judged. Why could I not have learned that so much younger? I would have saved myself so much anguish, so much worry, and I would have done so many more things so much sooner. And even in the times when we have to have a confrontation, maybe it is a war, maybe it's just having to have a discussion with a family member about a boundary that keeps being crossed. Maybe it's standing up for yourself at work, or calling out an injustice that you see. What often we don't realize is that the other party is often just as worried and afraid as we are. And like he says, it could be said that fear is the only thing we have in common. We all feel anxiety, worry, doubt, and stress. From kids to kings to soldiers to stay-at-home parents, we all feel it sharply in moments big and small. Anxiety. I love when he says here that the opposite of courage is not cowardice, which is, I think, something that most of us would have thought it was. I would have thought it was until I read this paragraph, and it really made me think. But what he says is, the opposite of courage is not, as some argue, being afraid. It's apathy. It's disenchantment, it's despair, it's throwing your hands up and saying, what's the point anyways? If we don't believe in anything, it becomes very hard to find anything worth believing in. And wow, did that hit me hard. Because who would blame us for just throwing our hands up and saying, this world is going to hell in a handbasket, there's nothing I can do about it, I'm just going to isolate myself, insulate myself, and do nothing. Say nothing when I see somebody doing something wrong. Do nothing when somebody needs my help. Right? Just be apathetic. Apathy, I think, is probably one of the biggest problems with Western society nowadays. Not everybody, obviously, but for the majority of people, we've been so desensitized by one crazy thing after another crazy thing after another crazy thing, after somebody having world leaders gaslight us into and say what they said and did they didn't say and do, and we just get to the point where it's like, oh, I can't handle this anymore, I can't deal with it, and so I just don't care. I don't care anymore. But I can't help thinking that that's a cop-out. Because even if we, obviously we don't need to be inundated with all the crazy shit that's going on, but we need to still care enough to support each other, to stand up when we need to vote in the way that will make a difference. We need to care a little bit. We don't have to have a loud opinion about everything, but we need to be informed enough so that we can make decisions, because if we don't, other people will make those decisions for us. Those people that don't care and that are apathetic and just kind of whatever happens, then they don't really have the right to complain when other people make decisions they don't like that then affect them, do they? Because they didn't stand up enough, they didn't care enough to vote, to stand up to a bully, to call somebody out when they said something racist or homophobic or misogynistic, right? You can't, I guess some people do, I can't go through life not caring. Because by not caring, I am being unkind. I am being complicit in a way, right? I am accepting what other people are doing with the world because I don't care enough to even be informed and do the little bits that I can do, right? We can't make a huge difference in the geopolitical things that are happening, but we can make small differences in our world if we care enough to be kind, to be encouraging, to exercise the rights that we do have to vote and to step up when somebody needs us to step up for them because they are not in a position to be strong enough to do it for themselves. And he talks about how, it's hard, but it's important to not let other people intimidate us, if possible, right? Like he's got a quote here from W.E.B. Du Bois, when it's saying that it's preferable to stand tall in a mud puddle than lick boots in the parlor. Bullies get away with bullying, whether in the playground or on the political stage, by intimidating. If we let people intimidate us, if we let situations intimidate us, we are giving permission to the bullies to continue to bully us. It's better to have our self-respect and to know that we've done the right thing, and to accept the consequences of that decision with pride and standing up tall and our heads held high. Because when you let somebody intimidate you, it's never just once, because you've now taught them that that's okay, and they can do it again and again and again, and the intimidation will get worse, and the misbehavior will get worse every single time. And of course, in some situations, in some parts of the world and in some situations, domestic or international, right? It can be in a relationship, it can certainly be on a political stage. Standing up and being courageous enough to say what needs to be said and do what needs to be done. What will happen to me? No one can tell you that. But with courage, you can say to yourself, I'm not sure, but I will get through it with my soul intact. I will make the best of it. I will not be afraid. There are times, thankfully rare, where we may need to put our personal safety on the line to do what's right, to help somebody else, to prevent an injustice or call an injustice to light and get justice. And what he's saying here is, courage is calling us to do it anyways. When he says here that we can curse darkness or we can light a candle, that courage is the decision to triumph over fear and to and the dark, and to light that candle. I really felt that in here. And in this day and age, with what is happening politically and just in our culture, we see a lot of darkness, a lot of apathy, a lot of darkness, a lot of people thinking only of themselves and their enrichment and not of other people. And so when he says we can curse the darkness or we can light a candle, I think that is so visual, because I can picture that, right? One act of kindness, one act of standing up to a bully or standing up for somebody who's being bullied, one pushback at an inappropriate comment, standing up for what's right at work. Those are all candles that we're lighting in the darkness, right? Going about our day and spreading positivity and refusing to let negativity and negative people have a say in how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about the world, and how other people should be treated. Those are all candles. And with enough of us doing that, we can push back that darkness. We absolutely can. It has been done in the past. It will be done in the future. This book is called Courage is Calling, and it really is a call to courage. It's a call to us, all of us. And again, it was written in 2021, but oh my God, is it appropriate for this day and age where we are all so beaten down by everything? I mean, 2026 feels like it's already been 12 months and it's only the end of January today. Most of us came into this year hopeful, fresh start, things were going to be better. And it just went to hell right away. And when we think about how many people are causing this much chaos, this much fear and anxiety in our world, it's such a small number of people. And we have millions and millions of people who are just sitting back and letting it happen, not standing up. Some of them are politicians that actually do have power to make a difference, to actually make this change. And we are waiting for them to have enough courage to think less about themselves, their safety, their political careers, and do the right thing. If enough of us light those candles and hold them to the feet of the people who actually have power to make a change, and to the feet of people who are being the destructive force, we can move mountains. We can absolutely do this. We can light a candle in the dark. Bullies depend on us being cowards, right? These forces, these groups, these people that are causing the chaos, that are, at work or in our lives, in our culture, they're counting on us being cowards. They're counting on us being apathetic. Bullies always count on their targets being afraid and too worried, too self-protective to stand up to them. And if you've ever dealt with a bully when you were a kid, and I have, the first time you fight back makes a huge difference. You might get hurt, but you fight back and you're no longer the easy target. We have to be willing to call it out. We have to be willing to hold people accountable and make the people that we have given our veto power to by electing them. We have to make them do their jobs, call them to account for why they're not doing their jobs. This next quote from this book, in the chapter is called Bold is Not Rash. You let me know who you think this describes, or what situation you think this describes. Because I even wrote here, for sure. Okay, one man with courage can make a majority. Which is true, right? We just need one courageous leader that can rally people to start caring as well, to make a movement. He said it's inspiring, but it's also dangerous. What if the man is wrong, an egomaniac? What if his cause is unjust? This is how despots are made and murderous regimes are built. This is how religious sects become doomsday cults. One man can just as easily lead himself and the majority right off a cliff. Just gonna leave that one there. I don't want my life to happen to me. I want to happen to my life. And he talks about how the people that have made the biggest difference in the world, who have been the most courageous, whose actions have caused the most positive change, who literally saved millions of lives and changed the world. They didn't get there by just letting things happen. They got there by making things happen. It seems obvious, but most of us go through the world just letting life happen to us, letting the world happen to us. And we forget, we miss the opportunities of happening to our lives, of making things happen. It's a small shift, but it's a powerful shift. And if you have that mindset, then you go into situations differently. You make decisions differently. You take chances that you might not have taken before because you were waiting for the right time. You were waiting for somebody to give you permission. You were waiting for your kids to be grown, or enough money in the bank, or whatever. Obviously, there's some things that happen to us we have no control over. But here's what we do have control over. We have control over how we react to those things, the decisions we make in order to deal with those things, our mindset. Even just deciding on a positive mindset, on taking the victim mentality out and deciding that we're not victims, that we have some control here, however small, and that the control we do have, we're going to use, right? We're not going to just let life happen to us. We're going to happen to our lives in big ways and in small ways. We'll change our lives. It's changed my life. Obviously, I don't have everything that I want. And I've made a hell of a lot of mistakes and missed a hell of a lot of opportunities and have some regrets, but they're not big regrets. And my goal is to get to the end of my life without any great big regrets, as much as possible. We'll all have some regrets. Sometimes courage means like leaving, which can be incredibly scary, right? It can be leaving your job. It can be leaving a relationship. Sometimes walking away can be one of the most scary and courageous things we can do. And because we can't change other people when it comes to, the people in our lives. So we have to be willing to do that, to go somewhere new, to start over, to walk away with at least our self-respect. We may walk away with virtually nothing else, but we'll at least have our self-respect. We'll at least have known we did the right thing. We'll at least have know that we did not participate in the injustice by staying quiet. That's not possible for every situation. But for so many of us, we have the ability, we had the ability, we will have the ability to walk away and not be part of something that we know is wrong. I have these 4 words highlighted here, and I've written "so true" beside it. And it really hit home for me, because what he says here is the opposite of fear is love. So if the opposite of courage is apathy, the opposite of fear is love. And you can't be courageous without love, right? Love of the vulnerable, love of your country, what's right, your family, that sort of thing. If we focus on the love we have for our fellow human beings, for the people who are the most vulnerable, the children, the immigrants, the people with nothing, that can't give us anything for helping them, right? We don't get anything out of it. But because we love them, we can push aside that fear, and we can do what's right. We can be courageous because we care, not because there's something in it for us, because that's just manipulation. Doing something brave because you're getting something out of it, that's cowardice, right? That's not doing it. There has to be a good reason why, and that reason why has to be caring. It has to be love. So when soldiers put themselves on the front line, they do it because they love their country. Mothers stand in front of their children to protect them from a bear or a cougar or a bullet. They do it because their love for their child is a billion times more important to them than the care for their own safety. Courage requires us to not remain silent. He quotes Marcus Aurelius, reminding himself that you can also commit injustice by doing nothing. And we are a society of doing nothing about injustices. The majority of society just sits back and goes, oh, that's awful. Nothing I can do about it. I'm not going to get involved. I don't want to lose my job, or I don't want to, antagonize my family or whatever. And by doing nothing, we are doing something. We're participating in it. And most of us, there's not anything big we can do, but there are many small things that we can do. And some bigger ones, right? Like voting is the big one. Voting is the rent you pay for living in a society that has, for now, free and fair elections. And in my mind, if you don't vote, you got no business complaining about how things turned out, because your not voting was a vote for, whatever happens, I'll be fine with. I'll die on that hill. That is, I absolutely believe that. And I've told my kids that. My kids vote. That if that this is your right and your privilege. So inform yourself about what the candidates are saying. And even if you have to hold your nose and choose the lesser of the crappy, politicians, you do that, because now you have a right to complain. Now you have a right to an opinion afterwards. If you didn't vote, that's what I tell them. If you didn't vote, you have no right to talk about anything, complain about anything, because you didn't care enough to exercise the right, the privilege that you have. That there are a lot of countries, a lot of places on this planet where people don't have that right. What he's saying is, courage is calling us. We intellectually know what's right and wrong. But like and I hate this expression or story, but the boiling frog theory, right? You throw the frog in the boiling water, it jumps out because it's boiling water. But you put it in cold water and on the stove, eventually it boils to death because the water just gets hotter and hotter and hotter and it doesn't notice. Hate that story, but it's a relevant explanation or descriptor for what I'm talking about. That's what's happened in our society. We're the frogs, and this shit show of a political climate is the water, and it's boiling, and we are this close to the end if something doesn't happen. We need to start jumping. We need to start reading. We need to start talking. We need to start being kind. We need to start calling our political representatives and saying, hey, you need to do your job, right? We need to just not be passive participants in what's happening, because our kids are watching. I use this expression. My kids laugh because I have so many expressions, but what I say is, listen, I can't hear what you're saying. I'm too busy listening to what you're doing. Let's make sure that we're moving through the world with kindness and love and making courageous choices to stand up in small ways when somebody says something that's racist, bigoted, homophobic. Call it out, even if it's your family. Hey, dude, that's not cool. Like, we don't talk like that around here. That's not funny, right? When you see somebody who's not being treated well, be on their side. Be on their side. Be on the side of right. Because it's the only thing we can do and still keep our self-respect and our heads high. It doesn't mean that our world needs to be a battleground. It just means that we need to decide who we are and then stop talking about who we are and start being who we are, living that life, so that when people listen to what we're doing, they see that. Maybe you can see why this book kind of changed my life. It's so beautifully written. He's got so many stories about historical figures, both ancient and modern. And there's so many aha moments in that it makes you think. And maybe that's the biggest gift that he's giving us, is that it's making us think about what we value, who we are, and what we want the world to be. Wow. That was kind of heavy, I know. I just had to share it, and now that I've shared it, I can stop talking about it as much. I am going to get my kids to read it, though, because I think it's a good book for everyone to read, the youth included. Anyways, it's raining again. It has been pouring rain, and as you saw in the clips at the beginning of the video, the campground down below has flooded. Now, it floods every spring, winter, at some point, because it's a floodplain, which is why there's no campers there year-round. They're only in the summer. But man, the river got high fast. That happened within the space of, well, it happened because we also had a king tide, which is an extraordinarily high tide. It's quite spectacular. The first time I saw it, it freaked me right out. But now I know to expect it. It just still blows my mind as to how fast that water comes in. And it recedes just as fast. We're up high on the hill here, so there's no risk of flooding here. Thank you for your patience in listening to my ramblings. I hope you found it interesting. Anyways, guys, I hope you're doing well. I hope you're staying safe. Remember, in a world where you can be anything, be kind, including to yourself. I love you, and I'll see you next time.